It has been harder to organise than the G7 summit, but finally, I've got the Arl Arses online to do a season review. Gentlemen, welcome. Going into the season, we obviously we had the summer of 2020, and obviously we made a few signs. We signed Tsimikas, we signed Thiago, and we signed Jota. Steve, I'll come to you first. What were your feelings about the business that we did in the summer? Was it enough, or did you feel that it was a good summer? What were your feelings going into the season?
I think, Gav, that we had those three signings. I think that Thiago and Jota have ended up being brilliant signings. Clearly, Tsimikas, we haven't really seen anything of him. I guess at the time that a lot of fans were, in fairness, bringing up we need to sign a centre-back, which we didn't. And I think that it's very, very easy to be wise with the benefits of hindsight. Who would have thought that our three main centre-backs would have all had season-ending injuries? You just couldn't have perceived that. I mean, Virgil never gets injured before he was assaulted by Pickford. He just doesn't get injured. And you lose players of that quality, and clearly it's going to have an effect to him. Equally, what could have happened, we could have had season-ending injuries to three strikers. And then everybody would have been turning around and saying, oh, we should have signed more than Jota. We should have signed additional strikers. It's very, very easy to be wise with the benefit of hindsight. I think it's a wonderful thing. Hey, it seemed okay at the time. I didn't think we'd have the injuries in such key positions. And when you lose a player like Virgil, I mean, his calmness permeates right through the whole team. And we were just a different side without him. So I wouldn't be too critical about what happened with business last summer.
Paul, we fell into the trap that City fell into the season before, where they went into the season with three centre-backs and thought Fernandinho could cover as a fourth centre-back. Were you one of the voices that were crying out for us to sign a centre-back in the summer? Because we basically sacrificed Lovren for Tsimikas. I mean, that's how it looked at the time. We used the Lovren money to sign a backup left-back, which we all wanted. What did you think?
I didn't think there was any problem with the signings last summer. Again, as Steve just said, hindsight's a wonderful thing. I certainly went into last season thinking that we had covered at every position. Perhaps Lovren going and not getting a fourth centre-back might be something that you could look back on and say, well, that come back and bit us on the arse in the end. But as you say, you don't know that's going to happen to the three centre-backs in that short space of time. So if you're talking specifically about last July, August, I was quite happy with the signings, which I still am with, to be honest. Obviously, Tsimikas, you've not really seen him, only in flashes and that. But a lad I know who lives in Athens has said he will fit into that side if needs be. But at the moment, you don't need him with Robbo there unless Robbo gets injured. But I don't think he'd let us down if he played. But to answer your question, no, I didn't think there was any problem last August going into the season until events transpired as they did, and we lost the three centre-backs, which is what, basically. But even then, in December, we're top of the league. They got injured early on. We're still top of the league going into the end of December. Mm. So it was just what happened in that 2-month period after Christmas that killed us. Because even City was struggling.
Yeah,
at that point. Obviously, they weren't struggling that much because they won the league in the end, but they were certainly, you're looking at City and they're getting beat at home, they're getting beat away, and the drawing games they drew with West Brom, I think, which we then get criticised and pilloried for a few weeks later. But they draw with them and they've got people injured, so it was a good result in the end. We draw with them and it's a terrible result. It's all a home defeat killed us. There's all your points. That's what killed us. And I don't know how that happened, to be honest. I know that today's podcast is discussing last season, but losing them games at home like we did and going into them thinking that, we might draw this. But you're going into games against Brighton and Burnley thinking you're going to get beat. Personally, I just thought even Everton, I know we talked on air about it, saying we beat them 2-0 and all that, but as soon as Everton scored, 4 minutes gone, they get the goal 1-up. You think, we're not going to win this now. And that was what the mindset went like at that part of the season. Not saying the players did, or I don't know what Eddie and Steve felt at that time when we went one behind in games. But certainly if we weren't scoring goals like we were going to struggle. But I can't pinpoint a reason why it suddenly started happening as it did.
Dad, looking at the season, just dragging it back to that first block of games between the start of the season and Christmas, and we were, like Paul said, we were top of the league. Do you think that there was any signs in that block of games that we perhaps weren't at our best and we were papering over the cracks and we were getting by, and that the problems that we had later on in the season were there for all to see, and it was inevitable that we were going to fall off?
I think over signings, what I put my mind back to is I can remember quite a few years ago when Gascoigne wanted to join, was going mad to actually come to Liverpool, and we were thinking about it. I mean, Kenny spoke to me about it. We were thinking about it. And what we did is, if you remember, we brought Rushy back because Rushy was at Juventus and he wants to come back. And that's what we did. Can you imagine if we'd have got Gascoigne coming back? So you're talking about signings. Who knows? I think that if Gascoigne had come to us, great player that he could be, but he was an absolute nutter. And you can imagine the disruption that would have happened at our club with Gascoigne there. So when you talk about signings, how do you know? You can only buy on what you think, and you have to trust Jurgen Klopp, quite frankly, for signings and that. But I think that, I don't know, we just lost. I think we lost a bit of momentum. Obviously, the injuries and that, and people have criticised us for using that as an excuse. But massive injuries, and really we at Christmas obviously we looked good, but then there were just things that weren't quite right. I don't think that people obviously believed in themselves, but then they turned it round. So we can't really argue, can we?
Steve, do you agree with that? There were things in that first 3 months period that weren't quite right. I mean, obviously we lose the centre backs, but in terms of the way we were playing and the way we were managing games, getting through games, where we were obviously winning at that point. But did you think that there were some cracks that were already appearing?
Well, I think the big game that really stuck out in that first start of the season was obviously we went to Villa Park and lost 7-2. And that was with Virgil, and I think Joe was alongside him, and we lost 7-2 with pretty well our full side out, I guess, other than the keeper, and you can't legislate for what he did in that particular game. So clearly there were one or two signs, but I think we were reasonably happy with how things were going. We were getting results coming through, so it didn't seem to be too much of a problem. I think what we didn't take into account at the time is that City were having a very, very poor start to the season. And they got their act together in a big way after that, and clearly then sort of just showed a clean pair of heels to everybody else. But I was reasonably content with how things were going, I guess, up until Boxing Day. And then we had that draw against West Brom at Anfield, and I was okay with it. I was okay. I don't think any of us could perceive what was then going to follow it. Losing 6 consecutive home games. I mean, it's just totally unheard of. And I don't know, we just seemed to get into a little bit of a spiral, a downward spiral that went into, we just ended up in a total rut.
Yeah, I mean, there's many factors, Paul, isn't there, that when you look back at the season, and when we get into that January period where the wheels started to come off, it's almost like an air crash investigation, and it's never one thing. Have you ever watched that program, Air Crash Investigation or Seconds to Disaster?
I will watch it now when we're not going on holiday anywhere, like.
But it's all
I'm not watching the day before,
of
mistakes,
isn't it?
Playing the next day, think, what's that mark? What's that crack? Is that supposed to be there?
No, but it's always accumulation of things, and obviously how much weight do you put on the fact that there was no fans in the stadium, for example?
Well, it was the same for everyone. Every team was suffering from the same. And you're looking at the games where there was fans briefly, the Tottenham one, which I was lucky to go to. You win that with a last-minute goal, and you could say to yourself, well, again, it's all hindsight, this. It's all, guesswork type of thing. But if the fans weren't there, only 2,000, but they were cheering as well. And then we get the last-minute winner. Now, if the fans aren't there, that might happen. Because a bit more urgency, I think, when there's fans there. But talking about, the way the season went and the fall-off after Christmas, a lot of it I put down to you personally, which you could say is hindsight, so you can be clever after the event. I think Andy, Robbo and Trent were having to do a lot more defensive work than they were previously over the last 2.5 years even. So I think that affected the team going forward more than a lot of people would have realised at the time, because it's just like we're not scoring goals. So it's, the midfield and everyone's blaming the front three type of thing, who did fall away a little bit after Christmas. There's no denying that. But you were talking about the other week, Mane had COVID in October and he wasn't really the same till the last 2 or 3 games of the season. But I do think a lot of it, again, you could just say the centre-halves situation was to blame for everything that happened, because up till Christmas, things are going well. And I think basically, as Steve said, he fell away after Christmas. It's tiredness was setting in with the players who were doing a lot more defensive work and probably a lot more thinking than they've been doing the previous 2 years, because you knew if they went bombing forward, you've got Virgil there and whoever it was with him, Gomez or whatever, an experienced centre-half, so we were covering in the right places. And then I don't think the young lads were offering, due to the experience as much as anything else, I don't think they were offering as much cover as the other two would. So I think a lot of it's mainly down. And then, of course, if you say this and everyone goes, oh, you're just blaming injuries again, like, Steve and Eddie said, it's all down to injuries. But it was. You can't lose that. And then at the end of the season, City haven't got Laporte playing, and everyone on the media and everything saying, oh, well, they've lost him. But when we were losing players early on, it's, oh, well, you just got to
Maguire's the big one, isn't it? I mean, the way the press were covering the fact that Maguire was missing and we beat Man United, well, of course, they had Maguire missing.
Yeah, well, that's the same. You can blame, that's another very good example of it. It's we were blaming Van Dijk and Gomez and Matip being out. And then United lose one. And it was, oh, well, they're doing well to do what they're doing with the missing centre-back or centre-back. But, I heard England saying he's playing at some point tonight. I don't know how he can make that announcement, just to slightly change the subject. Southgate said he's going to get game time tonight. So it'll be interesting to see if they're 1-0 down with 10 minutes to go, if he puts Harry Maguire on then. But I'd prefer him not to be on the pitch at any stage, to be honest, because I don't rate him at all. But that's my opinion on him.
Cheers for that. Dad, we coped pretty well for a long time without Gomez and Van Dijk, didn't we? And Matip was, I believe now Matip was playing with an injury. He got injured in the Everton game as well and carried on playing until January. But what do you think it was about the fact that Matip then got injured and things started to collapse? Do you think that was an overall mentality in the squad, or what?
I think it's something that really can't be explained. It's amazing that we went on that run, and the thing I think that was missing on when the bad run was on was actually team spirit. The very thing that actually got us through to finish third. So where did it go? And there was no team spirit. And the times when we lost the 6 on the run, and that very team spirit was there in the running, and I think I can't really explain it. glad it obviously did happen, but how do you explain it? But there's certainly something not quite right when we had that bad run. There didn't seem to be the same spirit as the one with the runner, where we surprised ourselves really, and the team spirit came through more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So how it is, I'm not too sure.
Steve, do you think that during that really bleak time when my mind casts back to the 6 home defeats on the bounce, which we've said before on a podcast that would never happen with fans in the stadium, 100%. But do you think during that period, and I'm not trying to be controversial here, but do you think Klopp made mistakes with his team selections during that period at all?
I think to a certain extent he probably did. But look, Jurgen Klopp is the best manager in the world, but he's not a magician. He isn't a magician, and it's very, very easy to be wise with the benefit of hindsight again. I guess the biggest decision that he probably made at the time was to weaken the midfield, to try and bolster the back four and the centre back position in particular. But what he was dealing with at the time, it wasn't just centre backs that he was losing. We lost Alisson. Kelleher was not fit to replace him, so that was a bit of a problem. But when you look at the other players during that run who just weren't available, Trent, Fab, Hendo, Thiago, Jota, they were all out. I mean, it was a question almost of, if you'd have turned up at Anfield with your boots, you may well have actually got a game there. And it seemed for a while that the only sort of non-injuries that we had were Robbo and Gini, who remained fully fit through that particular time. I also think that I'm just building on something I think that you were saying, and indeed you, Paul. We went through a stage of having unbelievable bad luck. We were conceding late goals all the time, and I think that probably affected the team. It was almost like that mentality got to the stage where whatever we do, we're not going to win this game.
Well, I think there's that quote I think I've got a feeling it's Andy Robertson, but it's certainly one of the Liverpool players that told a journalist that at the moment, that was when it was its worst, the players feel like they're trying to run through quicksand. It doesn't matter how hard they try, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And I think what you're saying there is absolutely right. It didn't look like we were catching a break, and I know that sounds a little bit wishy-washy that you're hoping for good luck and you should make your own luck, but I mean, I think you've just picked up on something there, Steve, and I'll stick with you. How crucial do you think that Jota injury was?
Well, what happened, Gav, is that along with the injury problems that we had at the back, the front three who just scored goals for fun, really, for seasons, didn't they? All of a sudden, they started misfiring. Now, it's difficult to put your finger on exactly what that problem was. I mean, Paul, you mentioned the COVID thing that affected Mane probably for the rest of the season since he got it, and the injury to Jota meant that we didn't really have that much of an option. We had to stick pretty well with what we had. So we couldn't buy goals during that phase. I also think that to a large extent we just had terrible bad luck. Mm-hmm. We really just had terrible bad luck. And I agree, you do make your own luck. And it's interesting that when we started coming out of it, all of a sudden we started to have a bit of good luck. Yeah, it was us that were getting the late goals. Mm. We were getting the late goals to get the 3 points. But yeah, Jota was a really good signing for us. Jota I think will be a great player for us in seasons to come. So to lose him when he was on a bit of a roll as well, he was doing really well at the time, and to lose him for was it 3 months we lost him for, something like that. It's clearly going to affect when your existing front three aren't really firing.
Yeah, Paul, I'm going to pick up on something Steve said there, and from a tactical point of view, just wondered what you thought. Do you think that the lack of goals that came from the front three was a direct result of us losing our centre backs? And what I mean by that is, was there something tactically that changed, which meant that the space in between the back line and the forward line became larger, and that hampered our forward line?
Well, it's what I was saying before. I think the two centre backs going, if you just say 2 out of 3, whichever 2 out of 3 it was, going, affected everything else going forward in the rest of the team. And it's the example I always put of Trent and Robbo. I just don't think they could attack with the same freedom of mind that they could the previous 24 months or however long it was. I just think that affected everything going forward. You look at the number, I mean, that stat they come up with, I know the stats can, you can go mad looking at the statistics and that, but the one about how many shots we had without scoring. Now, you could say, well, the goalies are playing well, because it's like when someone the other day said he's done the most blocks this season in the whole season. I can't remember who it was now, but that just went to me. I always can imagine me dad saying something of saying, well, that means he's let someone get a shot away. If he's done most blocks, he's let them have a shot before he's got there. So he's out of position. You shouldn't be letting them having the shot. So everyone's saying, he's done 600 blocks this season. So what that means he's let people have 600 shots. It's like saves as well. The goalies, he's done this, he's done that. He's done the most saves. So he's had the most shots at him then as well, like type of thing. So
it's the defence in front of him aren't doing their job.
So, but I really believe.
I think I looked at a stat, Paul, that after City, we'd had the most shots in the Premier League.
Yeah, well, this is it, and then you could, but even that, it's like shots from where?
Yeah.
And how much did they miss by? You could just look at it now. To go back to an example, what happened on Wednesday, that Scotland game. Basically, the Czech Republic scored from a Scotland shot, in effect. That fella broke forward and tried the shot from 40 yards, hit the defender, bounced to the attacker, who then zooms it in from 50 yards type thing, which is a fantastic goal. But the stat would be he's just had a shot. Not his player had a shot. And that's what the goal. So shots are, again, a statistic that you can look at and say, well, you've had 15 shots and not scored. I always remember John Bennison at Melwood. As the forwards come in at the end, he'd be saying, how many shots did you have? And he'd say, well, 2. Well, that's no good, is it? You've got to have 5 or 6. And it's one of them things. It's having shots, but it's being in the right position to have a shot as well. Because, if you look at some of Salah's, he's kicking it against defenders, and then it counts as a shot, and he's never, ever going to score from it. But it's one of them things. It's hindsight, isn't it? What we keep saying. You look back at the season and think, them 2 centre-halves don't get it. I don't keep saying the 2 centre-halves when 3 got injured, but it's the 2 who would have played in any game out of them 3. It wouldn't have been we wouldn't have finished 3rd. I think we'd have been pushing City. But you look at even the games where we're saying about the home games where we lost the 6 home games on the trot, we were having decent results away from home at the same time. So literally no explanation for it. We went last season, we were saying last season, the season we won the league, we got a lucky 1-0 win at Sheffield United when Wijnaldum's shot went through the goalie.
That's right, yeah.
Last season, the season's just finished. We beat them 2-0 there and they never had a shot. Yeah. And we look mild. If you put them 2 games together, one we win the league, one we're in the middle of a struggle, and we beat them much easier. The season was struggling. So none of it makes sense. I don't even know why we're having this podcast, because none of it makes sense.
No, totally. If you're enjoying this video so far, please show your support for the Kenn7 channel by subscribing, clicking the like button, and also clicking the notifications button as well to get future broadcasts. If you could also share the video on your Twitter and Facebook account, that will show YouTube's algorithm that you like our content. Have you heard about Kenn7 merchandise? The link is in the description of this video. We have premium fanwear for fans covering Liverpool, Celtic and Scotland, and it's fanwear for young and old. So we have t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, caps, mugs, you name it, we've got it. Just something else to remember, every purchase that is made on our website, we donate to the Marina Dalglish Appeal. So you're helping a great cause as well. Dad, do you? I mean, we turned it round, and I think one of the big reasons was that Jurgen Klopp found a Premier League class centre back in Nat Phillips, which he prior to that. One of the, he didn't know he was actually at that level, I'm guessing, because he was keeping him back. He wasn't playing him. In fact, he played Reece Williams ahead of him in those early periods when he was experimenting with a back line. I mean, what's your opinion of Nat Phillips's contribution?
I think it was massive. But I remember talking to Steve, and I said that when we were going through that patch, the bad patch, I said, these goalkeepers, where are they coming from? The saying everything. I think I said it to you as well. And it seemed to me that was what was happening. But Matt Phillips, for me, we need to keep him. I think he's 24. He's I think he's got something about him, and I'm hoping that we can actually find a place for him, as well as Harvey Elliott as well, because these are kids who are going to come through,
I mean, Steve, I'll just come to you on Nat Phillips. What was your thoughts about his contribution to the season, and where do you see him having a future at Liverpool?
Well, I think that, when we did start to turn it around, the development of Nat Phillips, and to a lesser extent Reece Williams, because he did a job for us, that was absolutely crucial in us being able to turn it around, and the fact that we took 26 points out of 30, which I'll be honest, I didn't see coming. And because what happened was that there was little at that point to suggest that we were going to come out of that bleak midwinter. When we were going into the last 10 games, there was little to suggest, I think. And I remember having the discussion with you because you firmly believed that we probably could.
No, I was just about to say that. I said out of the top 5-6 teams, we were the only team who could do that run. But like you've just said, there was absolutely no evidence whatsoever to suggest that was possible at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, specifically on that, I think that he developed. I think it was crucial that Jurgen did change his mind, and that he seemed to think to himself, I'm going to have to stick with recognised centre-backs here, because taking Fabinho or Henderson, who obviously got injured, out of the midfield is weakening our midfield so much and having such an effect on the rest of the side. It's not allowing Thiago to play the game that he's been bought to play for us. So, I mean, really, Nat Phillips deserved a lot of plaudits for getting us into the Champions League in third place. Absolutely no doubt about that. And like Ed, I hope that there's a place for Nat Phillips in the future with Liverpool Football Club. I honestly don't think that he will be a first choice centre back, and that's no aspersion on him. But if we've got fully fit centre backs, I think Nat's probably going to struggle to be a starter every single week. But there's a place for him in the side, or in the club.
Paul, I would like, you strike me as a man who loves a bit of a hard centre back, to be honest with you, Paul.
Yeah.
The less said about that, the better. I didn't mean it in those terms, obviously. But I did a podcast with James Pearce the other day, and we had this chat about Nat Phillips, and he was very much like I am in we need 5 centre-backs minimum to go into next season, because we don't know what the 3 lads are going to be like coming back at all, and we need to cover our backs. There's been a lot of negative stuff on Twitter come back about that, saying, how can you be so selfish? You're talking about a young lad's career here. He deserves to be able to go away. Where do you stand on that?
I personally, when Steve was talking there, I wouldn't mind the first Norwich away. If the centre backs at the Norwich away game next season are Virgil van Dijk and Nat Phillips, that wouldn't cause me any stress at all. I think Nat Phillips.
No one getting a head on anything, would there?
Well, this is it. You see, Virgil could concentrate on what he does best, which is reading the game, making sure people are in position. I'm not suggesting the professional footballers don't know where to stand if he's not there, but certainly guiding people through games. I'd love to see Nat Phillips play a few games alongside Virgil van Dijk.
Yeah, interesting.
Just to see, because I think he'd improve. And to be fair, he's done brilliantly for us at the end of last season, or the second half of last season, if you like. Because I think he was struggling a bit when he's alongside not recognised centre-halves, because I always thought he was better alongside Reece Williams than he was again with Fabinho. I just think
Kabak as well. And Kabak as well. He was good.
I mean, he's not signing, is he, Kabak? I think we've. But you wouldn't say if someone said today they changed their mind and signed Kabak, you wouldn't go, "Well, why have they done that?" Like personally, I wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't.
He could do a job as well. And again, Kabak alongside Virgil van Dijk. I know Virgil's the main man here, but he is the main man in the team for me. Organising wise, I'm not saying he's the one we'd missed the most, but certainly last season. And again, doing the old time machine thing. If you go back to Virgil not being injured, you don't know where we'd finish. You don't know what would have happened. He could have had the nightmare season, and we finished 6th. So you really don't know. I think finishing 3rd under the circumstances was a good result. I think we talked about it last time. You can't be happy about finishing 3rd when you'd won the league the year before. But once you get into that position we were in late January, mid-February, if someone says then you're going to finish 3rd, you think, oh, crikey, that'll do. And that's what we did in the end. The game, as you said, Steve said, luck started going our way a little bit in games. We were getting decisions. I mean, you look back at some of the decisions we had against us last season, and again, I know it's not a time to bring up old stuff. We were doing a season review, so if you're not going to bring it up now, you never can. The ridiculous penalty Brighton got given in the last minute.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You look at it again, it's happened in 3 or 4 games I've seen in the last 2-3 weeks on the telly. The same thing happens. Everyone just, great play on. So I'd love to know who says to the ref, we're looking at that. Because he can't be the ref all the time. Because you're watching the Euros here, the VAR seems to be working how it should work. When someone says, hang on, he's offside. No, he isn't. Play on. Okay, thanks. They haven't got teams of people with rulers and marker pens and fluorescent pens doing lines up and down the pitch with people's armpits and the wrong boots. And the classic, again, it's not even us, the West Brom one, when they did the line from the player who never scored and disallowed the goal. They did the line from the wrong player and said he's offside. Well, he never scored. Well, it's too late now. It's been disallowed.
I think we could probably do a VAR pod over the next month or so at some stage, because to get your views on it would be actually quite interesting.
It wouldn't. It must be a stream of abuse directed at Park.
I mean, yeah. I think we'll do that at some stage. We'll have a VAR podcast and discuss it, because I think getting all your collective years of experience views on it would be quite interesting.
I'd like to see my dad with VAR.
Oh, Jesus Christ! I can't even imagine.
To see how long that monitor stayed at the side of the pit. It's fell over again. VAR's been stopped at Liverpool. There's been another mysterious incident where the telly's fell over again. I don't know where Ronnie Moran is, but it's fell over again.
Dad, we've talked through Nat Phillips, and obviously his performances towards the end of the season was stellar. But was there anyone else who came out with great credit in that season for you? A particular player who you thought was potentially, our player of the season?
I thought that Kabak actually did well, but he seems now, because is it 18 million they want for him?
Yeah, we're not signing him.
I don't think a good sign him. But what I liked about it is the latter end of the season is the actual team spirit that came out. The team spirit was magnificent, and that got us through. That got us through quite a few the games, the run up. I mean, we kept looking at games. Oh, can we win this one? Oh, I don't know whether we can. But the team spirit, and they all played for each other. It was collective, and that was magnificent. So everyone really played the part. I mean, obviously, the people who played in the positions who, because people were injured, were played well. But then the rest of the team rose to the occasion as well. Even the strikers, and that got us through to the end, really.
Of course. So, I mean, Steve, just to sort of wrap this up, obviously we go into a season on a bit of a bounce, if you're honest with you. I mean, we could have been going into next season dreading it the way it was looking, but now we finished third. We all feel energized, I'm sure. How are you feeling about the new season? And, where would you... We've already signed Konate, obviously, which I think we mentioned on a previous podcast. What do you think that we need? And, are you quite positive for the next season?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing to say about last season, moving into it, I'm ashamed to say this, but finishing third actually felt like winning a trophy to me from where we were coming. It really did. I wish for the season, please let us not have the injury crisis that we've had this year, because unlike some teams, City in particular, we just don't have the squad depth to cope with it and probably put a realistic challenge in for the title if we have lots and lots of injuries. I think that Virgil coming back, I mean, and we've all got crossing everything we've got with Virgil. We're just hoping that he comes back something like he is to his full ability. I believe that he may not make the start of the season. This is only rumour and conjecture. I've heard that Joe Gomez is probably more advanced in his rehab than any of the other
which surprises me, Steve, because it was all about Virgil playing in the Euros. And that was a possibility. So this new information we've now got that Gomez is further along and Virgil's not quite as advanced, that surprises me. Does it surprise you?
It's also worrying, quite honestly. I mean, hey, let's not underestimate the extent of that injury that he's had. I mean, he's pretty well destroyed his knee.
Right.
He has. I mean, I'm not a medic. I'm not a physio, but people who know things about this say, look, he is the 4 compartments of the knee, and he's really knackered 3 of them.
Well, you've got some experience. You've had a knee replacement.
Yeah, so's your dad as well, actually. Yeah. But I don't think I'm not required to play at the level that Virgil van Dijk's required to play at. So. Hey, if Virgil comes back anything like, I'm very, very optimistic for the season. I really am. I guess that there's questions to be asked. I mean, who's going to replace Genie? That is important, because Genie did get a bit of stick at times, but hey, he was virtually the ever present in there. What's going to happen with that? We could probably do with another striker, I would guess, but my hope is that other striker is going to be Harvey Elliott, actually coming back after a fantastic loan spell at Blackburn, where he virtually set the Championship alight on that. I think that the future for Divock is, I don't think there is really a future for him at Anfield. I think he's been great. He's given us some great moments. So, hey, I'm really looking forward to the season now. I'm looking forward to getting back to Anfield, like all of us are. Hopefully, there'll be full crowds from when's the first game? The third week in August, third week in August for our first home game. So, yeah, I'm optimistic for the season. It'd be interesting to see who actually comes in. As I say, we could possibly do with another striker. We need to decide how we're going to replace Genie as well. But I think that if we have a bit of luck with our guys coming back from injury in the centre back position, I think we've got quite a bit to be optimistic about.
Where do you stand on that, Paul? Do you think we need to replace Genie, and do you think we need a backup striker, or are you, like Steve said, happy to give Harvey Elliott a go?
No, I'm not happy with Genie going. That's not the way to phrase it. But I think if someone said there now, first game, I'm talking about the first game of next season again, the midfield 3 of Fabinho, Henderson and Thiago, no one I don't think personally would say, well, why is Wijnaldum not playing? I know he could play further wide or whatever. There's people who can do that anyway. But if you've got the front 3 as normal, and then them 3 in midfield, and the back 4 of Robertson, Trent, and whoever the 2 centre halves are, there's your starting 11. And Wijnaldum's not in that starting 11, not needed in that starting 11 is what I'm getting at. You're not saying when you've got the two in midfield, you need Wijnaldum as one of the three, because I don't think you do. If you've got them other three fit and playing, Fabinho, Henderson and Thiago, I don't think you need him then. And again, one of the other things is, I think whether the argument is, has anyone ever said, does he want to leave? Or have we not offered him the right contract? Why is he actually left? Everyone's saying that, sorry, he's gone. Is it his decision to go, or is the club not giving him a new contract, or is he not happy with the new contract? It's not really come out what the situation is with why he's leaving.
I think reading between the lines, he's never had a pay rise since he signed. So he's been there, 5 years? He was in Klopp's first signing. So he was on the money that he got given when he signed, which was about 50 grand a week. Everyone else has... Hey?
That's his agent's fault then, isn't it?
Everyone else has had pay rises around him, and he's been one of the mainstays in the team. And I mean, this is, like I say, I don't know any information, but reading between the lines, I think from bits of information I've picked up. So he hasn't been given the pay rise. And I think when he's gone into the negotiation, his agent has said, look, we deserve the back pay we should have had a pay rise 2 years ago. We deserve that back pay as well as a pay rise. And I think perhaps that was a stumbling block that they couldn't get over. That's just my reading of the situation, if I'm honest.
Well, because you wouldn't have a 5-year contract when he signed.
Yeah.
At some point, he's signed another contract, presumably for the same money.
No, because his contract he signed 5 years ago, so he hasn't had a bump up.
If we sign him on a 5-year contract as well. No.
Yep.
That's unusual, isn't it? Like it's usually 3 years at the most, isn't it? I've not really heard of 5-year contracts in the recent past.
Yeah.
Seems an incredibly long time to sign someone.
Well, he was at the right age though, wasn't he, at that point? And maybe 5 years ago that was what we were doing. We were giving 5-year contracts. You've got to protect yourself as well. I mean, if you give a 3-year contract, Paul, then it leaves you open to Bosnham. So it has to be a 5-year contract, doesn't it, really?
Well, I'd be interested to know what they're all on now. I would be interested to see what all the players are on now, what the contracts are.
Google it. You can actually, if you Google what Liverpool's wages are, it's actually all there. Because I was interested to wonder what Nat Phillips was on, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Because Nat Phillips, I don't think has had a bump up, certainly since he's been brought into the team. So, you wonder what's going on there, and are they going to offer him something more or whatever? But Dad, what do you think about next season? What are your thoughts? How are you feeling about going into the new season?
For me, I think it's obviously we need to get people back, but also if we come back with the attitude that we finished with, and the team spirit that we finished with, wherever that came from, then I'm looking forward to it. I am looking forward to seeing Harvey Elliott come in.
You're a big Harvey Elliott fan, aren't you?
I think he's just got the right attitude, and he's got the right mentality, I think, for Liverpool Football Club as well. I mean, he's a fan, his dad is, and it's just all there, and you just love it to be there. And that attitude could be infectious as well in the dressing room. So I'm looking forward to seeing him come back from loan. He's had a great loan season. So I mean, it's just all made for it. And he's only young, but he's good enough. So it doesn't really matter about his age, does it?
Lovely stuff. Well, listen, boys, thanks very much for your time. I know it's very precious, especially you, Paul, with you watching 5 live games in a day or whatever it is.
We're getting furniture delivered and a new carpet today.
I know you've got that, but the other day, what was it the other day when I asked you to do it and you went, I'm going to watch Vauxhall Motors versus the Arkles car park, you know what I mean?
No, they're all proper games. Well, hopefully today, if we've finished all this by 12:30, Everton are playing Tranmere Rovers at Vauxhall's at 1:30 today. So
Everton kids?
Everton College. It's Everton College. It's like it's not the academy, it's the development. It's like Robbie Fowler's academy players in this National Youth League. So Everton College is based at Vauxhall Motors, and they're playing Tranmere Rovers development squad today. So the good games, the good players and good games, they're not just like, you know, it's not.
Oh, I'm not disparaging the standard
We
at all. I just
car park left. One of the few teams I've not seen this season.
Quality. Right, well, brilliant. Listen, boys, thank you very much. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to hit subscribe and hit the like button as well. But thanks very much, and we'll get the Arl Arses back in a month's time, and we'll have another chat. Thanks very much, boys. Take it easy.
Okay.
Welcome.
Oh, that's that.